Hello, this is Mr. Win, and this video is about finding sine and cosine equations. So if given a graph, you need to be able to find the trig equation, and there's literally infinitely many trig equations to choose from. But here I want to write two different possible equations. One must have a positive a value, and one must have a negative a value. So here's our graph. So first, we need to identify a, b, h, k. We can find a and k first, as they're the easiest. So notice, if you subtract the max and min values, the maximum is 3, the minimum is -7. 3 minus -7, you get 10, because that's 3 plus 7. Alright, then we have to divide that by 2, and we get 5. That's our amplitude. So we got to find the middle, which I put right here in a second, but it's 5 from the middle. So the middle plus 5, the middle minus 5. Alright, so to find the middle, we just do the max minus the amplitude, or the minimum plus the amplitude. So you either do 3 minus 5 or -7 plus 5. Either way, you get -2. So that's our midline or vertical shift, k. So the middle of this picture is y equals -2, and then you go 5 above it or 5 below it, because that's the amplitude. Now that we found a and k, we have to find b. So to find b, I'd look at the graph and find one period. Then you have to subtract those x values, and then use the period formula p equals 2 pi over b. Generally, you want to use the highest or lowest point. So in my case, I chose 5 pi over 12 and 17 pi over 12. So if you look at that, 5 pi over 12 right here and 17 pi over 12. So this actually was a full period because it's a V shape. So once I go back here, it repeats the V shape. It repeats the V shape. So this is actually down, down, up, up. So that is a full period. Alright, so I subtract the two. I get 12 pi over 12, which reduces the pi. So from here to here is pi. Whereas from here to here is pi. I mean, technically, you could also do this point. Go down, up, up, down before it repeats again, but I don't know what those values are. You can start here and then go down, up, down, then starts repeating it, but I don't know what these two x values are. So that's why you use the top or bottom point. Now that's just our period of the picture, that's not b. To find b, we have to use the p formula. So you know p, the period of the picture, which is pi, is equal to 2 pi over b, because all sine cosine graphs have period 2 pi. Multiply both sides by b to get the fraction. Divide both sides by pi, you get b equals 2. Now we have a, b, and k. So last, we have to strategically pick a point, or h, depending on what we want. If we want a positive cosine graph, a positive sine graph, a negative cosine graph, or a negative sine graph. There's a typo right there. Alright, so because we have high and low points marked and no midpoints, points on the midline, I want to use cosine. Remember, the pattern for positive cosine is high, mid, low, mid, high. So I can pick any one of these top points. I'm choosing 5 pi over 12 right here because it starts high, then it goes to the middle, then it goes to the low, it goes to the middle, it goes to high, because normal cosines are always that V shape. Alright, so if I use this and plug in the formula, A is positive 5 because we're following the normal pattern. Then we're doing cosine. B value is 2. Then we're doing x minus 5 pi over 12 because we're going right 5 pi over 12. And then you put k out here. K was our midline, which is just -2. Alright, if I want to do a negative cosine graph, it's going to be low, mid, high, mid, low. I start on the bottom, the low part. So I'm picking a -13 pi over 12. Alright, notice it goes, starts low, goes middle, goes high, back middle, low. It's basically an upside down V, because that's what A does if it's negative. It reflects the picture over the x-axis. So here my equation is going to be f of x equals -5, because where A is negative, we're in the bottom part. B is still 2, that's what only affects the period. Then x, I'm going to say plus 13 pi over 12, because that's meaning left. Then minus 2 is k. Now here's the picture, the original picture. I actually created this problem using sine equation, which is giving me this red line. When I turn on this cosine equation, the positive one we had earlier, it's the same thing. Now it turns green. So it's the same equation, just with the positive a value, and it's now cosine. Then when I do the negative cosine graph, I said again plus 13 pi over 12 here, it's the same picture, now purple. Again, sine graphs and cosine graphs are really the same thing. They're just phase shifts, they're horizontal shifts of each other. Alright, so you can write however you want. You can have a positive sign, positive cosine, negative cosine, depending on what you know. If you have the midpoints, like the points of the midline, you want to use sine. If you don't, you're going to have top and bottom, you want to use cosine. Alright, here's another problem. If given a word problem, be able to find the trig equation. Again, there's infinitely many to choose from. And here I want you to find two different possible equations. And one must have a positive a value, the other must have a negative a value. Some schools make you do one cosine equation, one sine equation. Same idea. So here's the word problem. You go to a carnival and decide to ride the Ferris wheel. The wheel is 3 feet off the ground. It has a diameter of 38. It takes you 4 seconds to reach the top, and a wheel makes one revolution every 10 seconds. Find the equation. Like before, we gotta find a, b, h, k. So first is that the minimum is 3 feet, because that's the lowest off the ground. And the diameter, that's all across the circle, means our max is 38 feet. Alright, so the bottom of the Ferris wheel, top of the Ferris wheel. If you subtract those, we get 38, which is the diameter. Divided by 2, I get 19. So I know my amplitude, A, is 19. Oops. Alright. Next, I can find K. Alright, so remember, if you know the amplitude, you can add it to the lowest or subtract from the highest, and you get 22. So we know 22 is our midline, y equals 22. Let's find B next. They gave us P. They said the revolution, the period, is 10 seconds. So we can say P equals 2 pi over B. Try to find B. We're going to multiply both sides by B to get rid of the fraction. Then we're going to divide both sides by 10. When you reduce, that's pi over 5. So we found A, B, and K. Alright, now we have to find H. Let's do this. 4 seconds to reach the top means 441 is a point. So let's graph everything we know and use some common sense. So 441's on there. Now we had 10 seconds, that's a full revolution, right? So we know 1441's on there. 10 more seconds will be 2441 on there. Those are 3 easy points. Now, using common sense, we find the halfway points. Because you do the full V in 10 seconds, you do half of the V in 5 seconds. So I got the midpoint of 4 and 14, got 9, and I knew that's the bottom of it. That's where they had 3 feet off the ground. And then standing here, midpoint of 24 and 14 gets me 19. I mean, you could also 9 to 19, that's 10 seconds. So that is a period, right? The bottom, top, top, or up, up, down, down, where's the bottom, right? It repeats this upside down V period. So you can do the period right here, or you can do it right here. Any 10 seconds should get you back to the same spot, one whole pattern. And even more tricky than that, you don't have to do this, but I wanted to find the midline points. So halfway between the highest point and the lowest point is going to be the midpoint. So the average of 4 and 9, 4 plus 9 is 13, divided 2 is 13 over 2, but I did do the decimal 6.5, just to make it easier for y'all. So this is the point, 6.522. Also the middle point right here, the midpoint right here, and midpoint right here. But notice, from 6.5 to 6.5, that is the full period, right? This is the sine period. It goes down, up, up, down. So it's like this S pattern. Then it repeats the S pattern again. We'll go backwards to the S pattern. We could find this left point, so I don't really feel like it. Anyways, oh, one last thing. If you draw the graph for these trig functions, for sine and cosine, if you're above the midline, make sure you draw a frowny face, upside down U. If you're below the midline, draw a happy face. They call it concavity. So notice how it goes arcing outwards, then it shifts and starts arcing outwards. So the curvature is what matters. So here it curves like this, but then here it curves this way. Alright, then it still curves this way. Then here it changes. Instead of following the same format, it turns and curves like this. Alright, so just upside down is frown, right side is cup. Anyways, let's now find the equation. We pick a strategic point, write our equation. Now it's actually easiest, and I wouldn't have to find all these points in the middle if I chose to do cosine, because we already have the top points, and even the bottom points. But I want to do sine this time, so we do need these middle points. Remember, positive sign is middle, high, middle, low, middle. So if I start this middle, it goes middle, low, and beginning. That's not what I want. So I go to the next one. It goes middle, high, good, then low, or sorry, middle, high, middle, low, middle. This is a positive sign part right here. So I could use this to start 11.5, comma 22. When I fill in A, B, H, K, f of x equals 19, A is positive. And then our B was pi over 5. Then it'll be x minus 11, because we're going to right 11.5. And then the midline is plus 22. If you can do a negative sign, you flip the L's and H's. So instead of middle high, it's now going to be middle low. So mid low, middle high, middle. So now I can use this first point. So mid, low, mid, high, middle. So 6.522 are my points. Final answer, the equation will be negative 19 because A is now negative. Still sine because we started at the middle. Pi over 5 is still B. And now it'll be x minus 6.5 because I am going right 6.5. And then plus 22 because that's your midline. Alright. And again, these problems are kind of long. Make sure you join the morning lab sessions. Ask questions. I will do a bunch of these. Here's a similar type of problem. A tsunami approaches San Francisco Bay. The water first goes down from normal. So it starts at normal, starts at mid. Then it rises an equal amount after it drops. And then it finally returns to normal. So it goes mid, goes down to low, goes back to mid, rises above to high, then drops down back to mid. Alright, tsunami has an amplitude of 12 meters in a period of 20 minutes. The normal depth of water is 14 meters. So I'm going to do this a little different. I'm going to ask you the question, what is the minimum and maximum height? So I'm going to pause for a second. Alright, you should have got minimum's 2 and max is 26. Because since the normal is 14, if you subtract 12, you get 2. If you add 12, you get 26. Because they already gave us A. So here's the next one. What is the midline? So I'm going to pause for a second. You should have got 14 because that's the middle of 2 and 26. That's the normal amount. Next question, what is the value of B? So I'm going to wait a second. You should have got pi over 10 because we have the period P, 20. 20 equals 2 pi over B. Multiply both sides by B to get rid of the fraction. Divide both sides by 20 and then reduce. So B equals pi over 10. Next question, if the water's in middle, low, middle, high, middle, you should use sine or cosine. I'll give you a second. Alright, you should use sine, and actually you should use negative sine because we're going middle low into the middle high. Alright, here's another type of problem, very similar. In a city on the coast, high tide was observed at midnight where the water reached 8 feet tall. Later on, low tide was observed to be 2 feet tall. If high tide happens every 12 hours, write the trig equation, that mouse scenario. We could do this in class, but just want to show you this type. They do like using high tide, low tide problems. So I guess here you could tell max minus min, 8 minus 2 is 6, divide 2 is 3, so our amplitude is 3. Our midline is y equals 5. You could find the amplitude, the b value, because we know the period is 12 hours, so 12 equals 2 pi over b, and things like that. Alright, well, take care. Make sure you ask questions in class. Make sure you visit. Alright, see you soon. Bye.